Join Tara and Alyssa as they explore the intersection of business, lifestyle, health, and wellness. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a wellness enthusiast, or someone seeking a meaningful life, this podcast delivers insights and inspiration for living your best life, because true success is about more than just the bottom line. To stay up to date on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe and like us on our channel and follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram at The Business of Living Well. Hey guys, welcome back to The Business of Living Well. Today we sit down with Karli Moch. She is a mentor of ours and she actually leads one of our Bible studies. It was a super good conversation. We talked about, so she actually almost lost her life in 2017. So we've talked about those last few years and how that essentially just changed her whole trajectory of her career and her life.
Yeah, she truly is a walking inspiration. She has taken something very hard in her life and taken it and decided not to dwell on it and decided instead to grow from it. And now is running a business, helping other people grow in their hardships as well. And it's really cool to see someone who has been through a lot and chose not to let it dictate their life, but instead let it grow through their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like her whole business is essentially based around like finding your purpose. And so she gives us a lot of different ways that you can do that as well. And so journaling and kind of rating where you are at in your life, whether it's spiritual, health, personal, relationships, work. So it's a super exciting episode.
Yeah, she had lots of tips and tricks that I'm excited for you guys to hear. Follow along.
Karli Moch, welcome to The Business of Living Well.
Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have you. You're an author. You are a leadership and culture coach. Mm-hmm. You're a certified dream manager. You are someone who's gone through many hardships, health-wise and life-wise. Mm-hmm. And you are a mentor to me and Alyssa. We really look up to you.
That was the best. That last one's the best. Yeah. That's like what I love the most about all this. So.
Yeah, you're so great. Well, okay, let's kind of start. We wanted to start at a very pivotal moment of your life. Yeah. So I know you're pretty open about like your health struggles, everything that's happened. I think in 2017 it started. So can you kind of just take us through like your story ending up in the hospital and how it made you the person that you are today?
Yeah, it was 2017, so good job. That's great. I would say I felt like, you know, a lot of the stuff I'm doing now, if I were to go back into that 7 years prior Karli and ask myself the questions that I get to ask other people now, I probably would have been so unaware of how off kilter my life really was. I wouldn't have been able to even recognize just the unhealthy habits in certain areas and certain rhythms of my life because it was just so focused on myself and things of this world. And so I just kind of allowed my career and the direction for my life to be very ego focused and like selfish ambition was driving me. And quite honestly, it drove me into the ground and ended up, being diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in October of 2017, which for those that aren't familiar, it's an autoimmune disease. So I'll have it forever. But it affects the digestive tract with ulcers and inflammation. And I had no idea what it was at the time. And, I had my 1-year-old at the time when I was diagnosed, and it went from just, here's the diagnosis, here's a script for a pill, to hospitalization within that first 30 days. So our life really got flipped upside down in a matter of a month. And my husband and I navigating that just really had what we think now as like the biggest blessing to be able to have that moment to really reevaluate what we're doing with our lives at hopefully a young age. I was 30 at the time. And so just to stop and be like, if this were my last day, like, would you have regrets? And I would have had many, not in big ways that we obviously, sometimes we can think, oh, you head down this direction, you have these big things that went wrong. Like it wasn't in those moments. It was just like, did you live according to how you wanted to impact people? And the answer would have been no. Mm-hmm. And so that that was really that time where I was lucky enough to have 3 surgeries that saved my life, and lived with a temporary ostomy bag for 6 months and lost a lot of things that I held my identity in for so long. Even come down to like, obviously my physical health was deteriorated. Couldn't walk from the car to inside, let alone up the stairs. Slept, on my main floor for months, just in pain. And then, my physical appearance, losing all my hair and looking just frail and malnourished, just didn't even really recognize who I saw in the mirror anymore. And I held a lot of weight in, and women do often, of just like what you look like, and just like seeing that reflection back in the mirror was maybe that first time I realized, wow, this is really not a good place, and this illness has really taken over my life, and lost my voice. And so obviously love to do a lot of talking, but singing as well, and just music had always been a part of me, and losing that led to a few more surgeries. It was just this one thing after the next, snowball effect of almost stripping away that identity of everything I held, dear to myself, which is too much. Like, I held it too close. And about a year later, we found out that those surgeries ultimately led to us not being able to have any more kids in the way that we had always planned. And so that was kind of that final straw of like, how many more things, like hit me when when I'm down, and just kind of over and over. But at that time I had already kind of come out of that phase of self-pity. It didn't last as long as I, looking back, I felt like I could have let that go on for a long time, just given the circumstances. And that final blow of not being able to grow our family in that way was really that first time where my husband and I, it took us like 24 hours and we were like, we're adopting. And so like, it was just this like clear, very big moment for us to be like, had we not gone through this really, really hard time, we would not have one of the biggest blessings in our entire life, which is now our son, Simon. So yeah, it was a wake-up call that we didn't know we needed. And I can't imagine where my life would be without hitting that rock bottom now.
Yeah.
So
You've really, like, a lot of people do dwell in it, and they really do kind of live the rest of their life dwelling in it, and just kind of be sad. And you really took it and you were like, well, how can I use this? How can God show me what I can use this in? And you also changed your career in that time.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I worked for a, very large company at the time, and went back to it for almost a little over a year. I would say I still was going back into my role, trying to find meaning, purpose within it. It did not hit the same coming out of it as a lot of people could expect, especially given the fact that we did want to see like, okay, I got another chance for a reason. And so when you have that kind of shift and not just be like, all right, back to what's comfortable, it's like you can't unsee it. Like all of those things of, you finally have this wake up call. You're like, okay, I don't know how I can go back to that. But we did try for a while. But I also took a really good look in the mirror of like, I am not impacting anyone outside of, the small family I have inside my home. And I mean, I grew up here my whole life, and I just hadn't volunteered. I haven't given back to the community. And so that kind of set off a spiral in like, what could I put my gifts and talents into? And found Bio Girls and started volunteering with them probably within a year after kind of feeling better. And that ended up leading to a career that I never saw coming as well. And so ended up leaving corporate America to go do development for a nonprofit for about 4 years prior to leaving to do this. So yeah, I think a lot of times where people feel stuck or, well, I'm already, 30, I'm already 40, like what could be different? I look back and like 7 years is a long time, but it's also not. And I think about what my life looked like with the people I was around, with the job I had, with the direction my life was headed. Yeah. And it is completely different. And it's not like it happened overnight. It was like this like small changes, small perspective shifts over a long period of time. My life looks so different, including the people I get to see all the time. Like I wouldn't have had that, And so you can change the direction of your life any day. And I feel like God does give us those chances. It's like, you don't need a new year to start a new thing inside of you. It's like, no, he knew we'd screw up over and over and over again, which is why we get a new day, you know, every single day you have a chance to do that. So
I love that. I really like that. So, okay, your book, it's Battle to Break Through.
it is.
So you talk a lot about your family and faith and how they helped you kind of anchor you in those really challenging times. Can you talk about that and what role they played?
Yeah, I mean, very lucky in the very dark times to have a husband that never wavered in his faith, or at least didn't show me that. He was very strong. Anytime I would go down, you know, a mental spiral, he would, you know, pull me back up with the positivity, which is not his normal strong suit. And so he really pulled through and kind of like stepped into that role for me when I needed it the most. And honestly, looking into like the depths of that, and probably was after that first surgery I had, waking up with the ostomy bag. And I mean, I was in complete pain, couldn't eat, couldn't drink for days, weeks before that. And so I woke up with the pain of surgical pain, but everything else, it felt like that toxic, like, pain was removed from my life, from my body. And so I felt so much better. But looking down at what the remains were and looking in the mirror, like I said earlier, it just was like that first moment where I wasn't in such pain, where I was like, whatever we have to do, it always just seems like there's something next. And that was so final. And I felt clear for the first time in so long, that it was my first time where I actually did start to feel that depression spiral of what my reality was. And he was just so steady, not only in his faith, but just in making sure that he was taking care of Dawson. And I never had to feel like I didn't have any other job but to get better. And so I never felt that weight of like guilt, or I should be doing, like, I never felt that. And so I don't think I would have come out the other side like I did without having that strength from him.
That's so awesome. Okay, can we talk about, I'm remembering from the book now, you named your ostomy bag,
yes,
right?
I did. Yes, but Stanley the stoma. Yep.
Okay, how did humor help?
Oh my
throughout
gosh.
all of
Well,
this?
that is like my coping mechanism since I was young, and probably a lot of people can relate to that. And so healthy or not healthy, it's just is what it is. And so I think knowing that it was temporary for me, I had the ability to do that. Now, if I knew it was permanent, I don't know what my reaction would have been. I'd hope it would have been better. But I'm like, I need to just name this thing, because it was absolutely a pain. It was, I do not have the body type for it. I have the shortest torso. So like my entire body was taken. I was like, this is not okay. So I've got to like come up with something that's going to get me through, and be super grateful that it did, because I think I even wrote like a goodbye letter to him. And was like,
that's cute.
You saved my life. You were an absolute pain in the ass, but you saved my life. And I have a chance to, you know, adjust the way that I live moving forward, because I had that opportunity to move forward. And honestly, I don't know if I would have made it without it. So
thank you, Stanley.
Yes, thanks, Stan. Hope I never see you again, but you just never know.
That's awesome.
So you have really taken humor.
Yeah.
And you've kind of had a great foundation from your family and your husband. When you were restarting, I mean, you said it already, you can restart at any point of your life. You decided to restart again.
Yeah.
Was it last year or 2 years ago? Last year?
Yep.
Last year, in going off on your own and starting your own coaching business.
Yeah. That was probably a year in the making, just unknowing what it would be. I have always been somebody that's had these like gut intuition feelings since I was really little. Now being very firm in my faith, I do feel like that is just like prayer and awareness from that part of my life. But I knew, it was probably about a year in before I left. I just knew there was something more about, after writing and getting some opportunities to share and speak and do some of those things. Yeah. I really loved that connection with people, and that I'll go first. I'll say the things that are hard, and what that brought in return of like, can I meet for coffee, or like those small things of allowing them the space to be heard or feel comfortable sharing something that was hard for somebody else. And I guess I really never realized that was like, it was coaching. You know, I like speaking, and I love being able to impact a group of people in a short period of time. But when I boiled it down, I was like, what is next? Like, what is this feeling of something is missing or there's something more? It came down to that one-on-one, and that, you know, people are telling me they're getting a divorce in the hallway. Like, what is that little thing where like people just feel like, I barely know you, but you're just willing to like share your deepest, darkest secrets, you know? Like, and my husband really did help me be like, you do know that's not normal. Like, that's not everybody's thing. And so like, there's obviously something where people feel comfortable sharing things with you. So like, figure out what that is. And coaching to me was like, I think I would love that opportunity to do that. And so kind of birthed that idea of going to get that certification in that dream management program.
Yeah. I think that's perfect for you.
Yeah.
So with that, you work with obviously a lot of organizations. I know you've been doing some one-on-one, some student athletes.
Yes.
You've been doing that. What are some common struggles that you're seeing, and then how do you help them through that? What's your role in that?
You know, a lot of it came down to, so the Dream Manager program, it's a program by Matthew Kelly. He's an author, and created this program actually back in like 2006. And most people send like an internal employee to go get certified and then bring this back to their organization. The curriculum is built and proven to help with like engagement of their employees, showing that appreciation beyond the role that they play. And so like, get them excited about their life outside of here so they show up more excited about the work that they're doing. I know we've all probably gone through seasons of where we're checking in, checking out, and going through the motions of life. And when we don't have that hope, that thing to look forward to, that excitement in our life, we certainly are not showing up to do somebody else's job with excitement or engagement. And so that's kind of where it stemmed from. And that's where I initially thought this was going to go as far as the one-on-one coaching, and do that on a fractional basis. Now I do some of that in that structure, but majority of where it's landed is with that college athlete. And when I was looking at the curriculum and realizing a lot of it is about finding that meaning and fulfillment and purpose beyond that identity we put our careers into, it made me think of that athlete and growing up playing sports. And, you know, had I gone on to college to play, like, I don't know how much I would have been able to let go of that identity leaving there. And I just think of, you know, they've been playing since they were 8 years old, and then they come play college football, basketball, whatever it is, and then that's over, or God forbid you get injured. And if you don't have that foundation or that sense of purpose beyond your role as an athlete, like, that broke my heart. And honestly, I reached out to the coach, and he knew exactly what this program was. I hadn't met anybody who even knew what I was talking about, let alone he's like, I love that author. I know that program. Like, we need you. I don't know how we're going to find the funding, but we need you. And I was just like, done, you know, like, and I haven't looked back since. And it's just been really, really rewarding and fulfilling to work with, you know, an age group that I wish I would have had that. I would have had some guidance, or if you don't know what you want to do, that's okay. Like, what is there about you that you love to do? Like, just digging into things that we get to now, but like in a moment in life where you are really lost. A lot of people are just really lost. And so it's been so rewarding to get to work with the athletes and watch them.
Are you finding that they're receptive to this, or are some of them harder than others?
I mean, there are certainly a few that are like, takes a few sessions where they're like, I'll show up because I have to, but like, I'm good. You know, like, there's a few where I could see myself in them just being like, oh gosh, everything's great. You know, we rate a lot of it off of the red, yellow, and green. So when you talk about living well, we do a rhythm of life check-in is what it's called. And so every single month I'm asking how they're doing physically. So their sleep rhythms, their nutrition, and their movement. Well, obviously as an athlete, your movement is off the charts. You know, nutrition for the most part, like, they're being told what to eat, when to eat, like all these things. But when it comes down to that sleep rhythm, that is a really difficult one a lot of times. And then we talk about their emotional well-being. And for us, we focus mostly on relationships for that piece of it. And so, you know, how are the health of your relationships with your friends, your teammates, your coaches, your family? Like, in the thick of season, you can really lose touch with family and people that really make you feel grounded, which makes them feel really off. And so, like, how can we create those little moments? And we say, are you in the red, yellow, or green? So they rate themselves in those areas. And then intellectual growth. So are you that lifelong learner? Are you learning about things that you love, not just being told to learn about? So, you could be taking classes that you don't care at all about. Like, is there an instrument you want to learn? Is there a new hobby you want to get involved in? It doesn't have to be
Find something
boring.
Yes.
So like, how can you like excite yourself for growth again? And then that fourth one is our spiritual health, which is, for me, obviously that's faith, but how we explain it is, do you wake up with that sense of peace, purpose, and know the direction for your life? And a lot of times that is one of the most difficult for them. And so we usually, we're setting out, all right, if you're in the red, what's one small step that we can make from now until the next time I see you that you're going to try to move that to a yellow or a green? And so we spend a lot of time in that rhythm.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
I like that. What's like a strategy or an exercise that you give them to go home with to practice like some of these
Yeah, a lot of times for them, it ends up actually being this, like, they're looking to the coach, or for so many years, they've looked to that person they hold a lot of weight in as far as, am I good enough?
Yep.
Am I worthy enough if I don't have enough playing time? Like all of these things that, I mean, anyone would be trapped into. Like, it's just the way that the game is played, right? And so when they're not getting those affirmations, or maybe what they did in high school, and now you're coming here and you're all on the same level. So it's a lot of that mindset game that is really played. And so a lot of different, especially when they're going into games, like how can we get you at an even foundation before you go in? Are you every senses, like you're at that checkout spot? Look, what can you smell? What can you see? What can you hear? All those things to get them sort of grounded so they can play how they play instead of being so worried in their mind.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff comes into play. But as far as these rhythms, it's usually like, if they're all in the red, I'm like, we're going to pick two, and let them be like, okay, you're in the red and in that spiritual health. When was the last time you felt at peace or you knew that direction? And sometimes it's been years. Sometimes they can't pinpoint it at all. And so it's a lot of asking them questions for them to figure out, oh, you know what? I did feel peace when I was here. So I'm like, okay, how can we make one small step? Is it to find time in the next 30 days to see that person that makes you feel that way, or get out in nature if that's what they're talking about, get back to church if they bring that up. And so setting a very small step, like that they're not going to fail at. And then we check in on it the next month. So it's that accountability piece of how did it go? Did you do it? And not just, how that age group can be, and we all can be without the accountability. It's tough.
Accountability at that age is huge because a lot of college students don't have someone checking in in high school. Like sometimes my parents didn't really check in a lot on how I was doing, or like if I was getting my homework done or things like that. So I think accountability is huge.
Yep. 100%.
And I think it says a lot about the coaches too, like the fact that these coaches are wanting to bring you in.
Absolutely.
They're helping with the baseline.
Yeah. And a lot of times, even in that organizational structure, it is that I do want this, but like the job duties are out of control. I can't be that person. It would spend my whole week doing that, and so a lot of times it takes that leader to be like, I want this for my people. I can't be the one. As much as I would love to be the one, I just can't. I don't have the time. And so it takes that piece off of them a little bit, as far as like, okay, a lot of times it is coaching the athlete to go have a conversation directly with the coach. If there's that, in that emotional health, a lot of times it is the miscommunication with teammates, or I really want to have a conversation with the coach, but I'm scared, or I don't want to look like I'm, all those things. So we work through what that structure can look like. And my gosh, if I could have had somebody help me have like a crucial conversation, or just be like a productive one in the least, it's just huge for them.
And having someone outside of their coach and their family to go and talk to about these things too is such a cool thing for kids to have.
Absolutely. I think of even just like, if you had that on staff, internal, you might get some like, positive feedback, and I'm sure there is plenty, but just knowing they're not going to be, in the break room with 5 of the other coaches every day, and like just that sense of safety, that psychological safety of this stays here, nothing's repeated, that kind of thing. I think just sets that foundation of trust from the get-go for sure.
Yeah.
We were just talking about having that person in your life that's not maybe your coach or your parents or just someone else to run things by. But I know we kind of talked about adversity in that first part. So whether it's health related or not, obviously a lot of people go through it. What's one piece of advice that you would give someone right now going through a pretty tough time?
I mean, I feel like everyone is going through something at this very moment. And it's pretty apparent with even just the people that I get to work with and, you know, even our small group. And like, there's just always something that somebody's being challenged with. I would say the biggest thing would be to not stuff it and ignore it. And I feel like we do that so often, especially up here in the Midwest. And just from experience of being more open and just really the same person, no matter what room you walk into, and being okay that, you know, not everything's perfect. Just to not stuff it down and be willing to open up to somebody who's safe to you. And just that power of community and somebody to help you through it and not do it alone. Because I feel like we always want to just like, we can get by, we can do it ourselves. And my biggest advice would just be like, open up to somebody that you trust, and it doesn't have to be the whole world. But just somebody that can help you through it and comfort you in that time.
I feel like there's a lot of power in vulnerability and having that person. Is there anything else that you maybe do, like whether it's journaling or going through then your, like you were saying, that scale and rating? How often are you rating?
I journal nightly. I have been a big journaler since I got sick. It's like I left school and then forgot everything I ever did. Like what? There's just like a blackout period of like, did you not read a book or like journal? I did nothing. You guys, I was just floating around to the next like position, title. Like these things just like blinded me from like what actually used to ground me and actually used to provide me a lot of joy, which a lot of that was writing, as probably the only subject throughout any schooling I had that I actually enjoyed. Basically it's just talking with a pen, and so like it makes sense. But once I started it really started for me journaling when I was in a big fear mode of, I really didn't know if I was going to live, and I was journaling in my notes on my phone, and then I would send it to my husband because I physically couldn't even say it out loud of like the amount of fear that I had, and the power of like our relationship growing through being able to share those things. Like for me, it was not immediately, I'm going to go share all these things about Stanley and like, I didn't just like wake up and be like, I'm going to be the most open book publicly everywhere. Like it started with just picking up a pen and being so honest about the way I was truly feeling, and then sharing it with that one trusted person at the time, which was my husband, and just like, help me through this. I actually am scared I'm not going to make it. And just that power in especially writing your prayers and the things that you pray for and being able to look back. Like there's such power in going through old journals of mine and being like, I have all of these things that I was praying so hard for, because you can easily lose sight of, you know, you get these things in your life that you've always wanted or dreamed of or were praying for miracle for, all these things, and then you just let it just not phase you as much as it should. And so big fan of journaling and reflecting and even writing what you want in your future. And so we do a lot of that in the coaching as well, as like write it down. There's such power in writing it down. And I don't know if you guys journal too.
I love journaling.
Journal? Yeah. Like it. And do you experience the same thing?
I do. Yeah. Whenever I can't sleep, especially when I can't sleep, I will just open my journal, write everything that's scrolling through my brain. Cause that's what happens is like, I just sometimes get so caught up in my thoughts that I can't get it to stop. So once I write it down, I'm like, okay, I released it. It's on paper. Sometimes I write letters to God. Like that's how I pray, is write it. And I love journaling.
I heard somebody say something too once that was like, if you can't get your thought reel out, they explain it in how you write it down. There's got to be a beginning, a middle, and end to when you write. And so if you're constantly having that same reel of thought, the power of writing it in a story form, whether that is prayer.
Yeah.
But if it's not for you, just writing it as though it's like a story you're telling somebody, because it is a story we're telling ourselves, right? And so you have to at some point come to an end.
Yes.
And so whatever that is for you, whether it's like, Lord, take this from me so I can see more clearly, whatever that is for that
Or even from
person.
yourself. Like sometimes I'll just write like, okay, these are steps that we can take
Yes.
to get over these things that you
Yep.
are battling right now.
Yes. And it has to come to an end. And so like that period is just like that. I'm not thinking about that anymore. And it can put an end to that thought cycle.
Yeah. I think for me, it feels like so much in my head, but then when you get it on paper and you're like, wait, that was only a paragraph.
Yes.
Of
Oh my
stuff. It
gosh,
doesn't-
totally.
like,
You're
that
like,
happens
anything
to
else?
us. Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that was it.
Okay. I'm glad I was thinking about that for 4 days now. Yeah.
Exactly. So I found that to be super helpful
Yeah.
too.
And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, they're extremely resistant to it. And like, I'm not journaling. No, like it's just like a foreign thought. And so it does take some prodding or like small steps a lot of times if you're not somebody that is used to doing that. But it is just super powerful tool for sure.
I've had friends, I suggest it to a lot of people who like are struggling with their thoughts. What are some ways that you started journaling? Like how do you prompt yourself to journal?
Yeah, I started with like one that had prompts in it.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think it was the 5-minute journal. And so I'm like, I can do 5 minutes a day. Right. And so like, it was like morning, night. Now I love that for the starting point. It got old for me because I'm somebody that does not like the same thing every day. And so it was a great ease into that. But I would say if you are somebody new to it, finding something that makes sense to you in this season of life, whether that is faith driven or, if you're like manifest, like whatever your thing is, like find something that does have those prompts so you get used to like doing the entry instead of just free writing. Now I'm just like full free write.
When you're journaling, that's kind of like a huge, you have to be in a right mindset to do that. What are some things that you have helped or set for yourself to help your mindset shift into that?
I think for me, I recognize a pattern of when I do not feel steady and at peace, and that is when I am on my phone too long. And so at first I set timers, for everything to black out the screen. Well, you can say 5 more minutes, 15 more minutes. Well, did all that. And so like it took me like months to finally find like self-control in it. And it will be that set time every single night, 9 p.m. It shuts down. I cannot access and I will not. And then being able to like use that time either for a lot of times it is like in the Bible, in the Word, and then free writing about what what spoke to me, things like that. And so it takes a lot of time to actually get in a habit and not beating yourself up about the days that you miss. I know for me, when I do miss those extreme like weeks or like it can go on and I'm like, why am I so off? Well, my goodness, like wake up. Like, and you can see the pattern of you haven't been journaling, you haven't been in those rhythms that do bring you peace. And so getting back to those and not beating yourself up about the time that you missed, that could be with anything, health related of the gym or eating or all these things that we just are so hard on ourselves for missing. And again, we get that new day every single day. And so there's really no excuse to just pick it back up again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any other routines that you've set for yourself to kind of get yourself out of that survival mode and into finding your life's purpose?
I think it was just small things over a long period of time. And I know people hate to hear that probably because they want just this, like, this is how I found it.
Help me
Quick
do it
answer.
all.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, looking back, when I talk about that rhythm of life, that I check in with people now, and this is why it was such a easy yes for me to be like, I just have to try this, because when I read the curriculum outline and read about what that check-in was like, I'm like, this is exactly the process that I was taking on my own for multiple years of like, I was not taking care of my body. Do I do a great job now? No. Am I leaps and bounds from before? Yes. So like the gratitude for even moving my body, like when you come out of something where you can't physically even walk up your stairs to like, I'm getting outside and in fresh air and going for something as simple as a walk instead of feeling like I need to be doing an hour and a half at the gym, or it's not worth nothing. Like, it's like all these lies that I just had to start over and be like, no, you're grateful to be able to walk outside. So it started with literally walking outside, in that physical realm of it. That intellectual piece, I told you, I never was like, I didn't read a book, you guys, and I was not, didn't know what a podcast was, or didn't care outside of like true crime. You know, I was not feeding my mind with anything. Like, it was that personal development, never had picked it up. And so, like, almost became addicting to constantly try to get better and be better. Same with the spiritual. Like, I found my faith in the darkest time, had been going to church my whole life, but never truly knew what it meant to follow Jesus rather than just, you know, say I was a believer. And so little bit over time, which started with music and started with, honestly, outdoors for me, and like being in the awe of the beauty of it. Like, it started so small. It wasn't even entering a church, you know? And so unfortunately and fortunately, like, it is those small, tiny things that just make sense to you in those really 4 key areas. If you like boiled it down to those 4 areas, like, where in your life can you make those small adjustments and not feel like you have to have it all together, you know?
I feel like being consistent in that too is like huge.
Yes. And finding that accountability or community of people to do it with you is huge too.
Yeah. And it's so cliche, but it really is the small things.
It is.
And back to the gratitude, that's actually how I first got into journaling. Mine was just like, write down 5 things a day you're grateful for. And then it makes you look for those things in your life then, or B, like, whether you do it in the morning, you're like, here's kind of a broader scope. If you do it at the end of the day, here's what happened throughout my day that I'm super grateful for. So I've really liked that. But okay, we have a question. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice before all of this, so let's say like 2016, what would it be?
Oh, you are not as important as you think you are. That is exactly what my life surrounded. Everything was just about myself, or I cared about my kid and my husband, of course, but like, it was so self-absorbed that I just, like, if I could go back, it was like, none of this is even about you. You know, in the grand scheme of things, it is just about myself.
That's awesome.
I probably would have slapped myself in the face, but I told my whatever.
Sometimes we all need a little wake up call.
100%.
Well, and it's so hard. Like, especially just in this day and age, it's all about consumerism. It's all about that instant gratification. So it's like, I don't know. Like, I think we all still struggle with the small things,
being grounded.
Yes. And realizing there's a lot bigger of a picture.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Karli, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. You guys make this so easy. So
You truly are like a mentor of ours. We just love talking with you. And we're always going to end with the same question. So what does living well mean to you?
Oh man, outside of those things that we have beat down, I would say it comes down to the people you impact and the fact that it is not about you. I think truly to live well means, you know, if you're going to measure anything, it's like, did you leave the people around you better than how you found them? And that can be in any setting, you know, that could be in your work, that could be inside your home. A lot of times I feel like, especially when we're young and ambitious and like want to change the world and almost like set on fire to live with so much purpose, it's almost like debilitating if you don't know exactly what you're going to do to make that difference. And so to live well in those moments to me just looks like, how can I show up and be a good human to the people around me in whatever setting that looks like. It's not going to probably be forever, you know, whatever setting you're in, and just putting people as a priority.
I love that answer.
That's such a Karli answer. I just love it.
No physical health thing or no nothing like that. Just be good to people. You know, and it'll come back 100 times.
Well,
you know,
it shows in your work that you do, and I love it. Well, thank you.